Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome to the school committee meeting of Monday, September 9th, 2019. This is your reminder that this meeting is being electronically recorded. Start tonight with another introduction. This is of the new assistant principal at Thatcher Elementary School. For that, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to invite up to join us Dr. Karen Tanakas and Dr. Tench.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hello.
How's everybody tonight?
Good.
Good. Good evening. I'm Lisa Karen Tanakas. I'm the principal of Thatcher Elementary and Early Learning Center. Thank you for having me. I have the pleasure tonight to introduce Dr. Bruce Tench. Dr. Tench comes to us from Dighton-Rehoboth Regional High School, where he was the assistant principal for the last 3 years. Please welcome me and welcome Dr. Tench in his introductory tonight.
Everybody.
You told me to keep it short and sweet.
I did. I'm not one for being like put on the spot. So, but no, thank you for. It's nice to meet everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited and I'm happy to be here. So I'm exhausted at the moment, so forgive me. But usually I have a little bit more energy into me. So, but no, I'm happy to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. So I'm kind of going back to my roots, if you will. So.
Did you start in elementary or?
My pre-prac work was done at the elementary school in New Bedford, Fairhaven, and then the MTELs came about and. I don't test very well, so I switched over to high school, so where I had to take one instead of like 4 tests. So.
Well done.
Any questions or comments? Well, I just say congratulations and welcome. We're glad to have you aboard and look forward to working with you and seeing you at future meetings. And best of luck at the beginning of the year.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you
very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll have our Student Advisory Council update. And with that, I'll first introduce and welcome our new Student Advisory Council representatives, Eleanor Graber and William Rooney III. We met them again last spring. They were introduced to us, but it's the first meeting, so welcome. And I'll turn it over to the two of you.
Sorry. Thank you for having us. We put together a little presentation for you guys about what's going around in the Attleboro Public Schools. So.
First of all, we'll start off with on October 3rd, we will have the groundbreaking for the new high school, which we are pumped about. It will be at 10 a.m. in the Bray Auditorium Lot, like where we'll meet on October 3rd, and the rain date is on the 4th.
So in the elementary schools, all 5 of them, they're having their back to school night on September 19th. This welcomes families, new students, brings together the community within that school, and I'm sure that the teachers, our principals, everyone is really excited to see everyone back to school, ready to get into the full swing of things at the elementary schools on that night.
Kind of go along with what Eleanor said, the middle schools are going to be on September 26th. It's kind of just the same gist of everything else. Families, just everybody else is included.
At the high school here, we have our back to school night at 6 p.m. Wednesday, sorry, on the 11th, and it's all-inclusive. Students come, families come, they follow the students' schedules, get to see their classes, meet their teachers. They get to understand how it is for students here at the high school. Then the next day, during the school day, we have Connections Day and the Connections Fair, which is it's about finding the behind-the-scenes people, one could say, that help students interact and go beyond high school. So they get to meet those staff members, they get to meet other students, make connections, as the name states, and that is the next day, Thursday, September 12th.
Kind of add along what she said, there is going to be motivational speakers, I believe, as well as like a club fair, just showing all the clubs that we have throughout the high school, so that people can try to figure out where they want to go for clubs, because that's just what we also have the Vietnam tribute wall on at Highland Park from 27th to 30th, and
This thanks our veterans and shows support for everyone who fought there, who lost people, and it's, again, brings our community together, and we're really excited about that. And that is all we have for today.
Mr.
Any
Domenici?
questions?
Yeah, so I'm on the steering committee for the moving wall, so I'm really excited to see that you guys are getting the word out, and kicks off Thursday night the 26th, and then all day Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the close on Monday. Volunteers from the high school are welcome, so
Okay.
feel free to spread the word.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Any other
that's
questions? Sorry, that's your.
No, that's okay. All right, well, thank you both very much. It's great to see you here, and I look forward to working with you this year, so thank you.
thank you.
All right, moving on, our business agenda tonight, we have the report of the superintendent, who with his team is going to report to us on the opening of the school year. Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. This time I'd like to invite up the rest of the team to join us. We got plenty of room. So, we're here tonight to report on this year's opening of school. I'd like to begin by saying that we are very happy that we had a relatively smooth opening to the school year. I want to be clear that to make such a claim is not to be so bold as to say that there were no issues. In fact, anytime you have to have one day in which there are no students in the building, and the next day we have 6,000 kids here district-wide, there are going to be issues. It's the nature of being in what I've come to realize is a seasonal industry, and it's really no way to run an airline. To be quite clear, that we go through this every year is pretty amazing. So we have our issues. Many of them, I would like to say, are things that are not outside of our control. When people don't meet deadlines, when people register late, when teachers resign at the last moment or don't show up when we've hired them, these kinds of things result in issues that we have to work through that I think are going to always be part of what we do. But there are elements to our processes and to our operational systems that do make a difference in terms of how things work for us. And we've been working very hard over the last few years to do a better job of that, and I think that we're really starting to see evidence of it. There have been other openings of school in this district not so long ago that were fraught with much greater difficulty than we experienced this year, and we're quite happy that that was not the experience this year for us. I would also like to say that as Ms. Regan and I toured the district in the last couple weeks and made sure to pop into every classroom, I think there's an observable effect to that smooth opening. Where in other years where there was distractions that interrupted the start, it was pretty noticeable to us how, as a result of the opening that we had, students were to work and focused on learning, and teachers were positive and energetic, and it had an overall, again, observable effect in how the district was off to a strong start academically as well. So that's the whole idea, and we feel like we're really making progress in this regard. But again, there are issues that we continue to work on. One of them that I'll mention that I think I said something about it in August, but either way, I'll say it again. One of the things that we've reflected on is that the world continues to change, and expectations that people have for institutions change with that. And so the historical approach to how we as a district handle the summer and the sort of antiquated notion that, oh, it's summertime, for the people that work during the year, that's their time that we expect them to get in some of their vacation time so that they're here when the kids are here. We can't stagger the vacations throughout the year like you do in most industries, right? We bunch them up where the kids aren't here. And so that results in a lot of people being out in July. And so once upon a time, that worked for us as a district, that, there wasn't going to be a lot getting done in July, and people didn't have real expectations for us to be in full service mode at that time. But as we have evolved into a 24/7 society in which everyone expects everything to happen almost immediately, I think that we as a district are going to have to rethink how we provision our summertime and plan for it, because it's pretty clear to me that we're increasingly facing the expectation that we can do full service work throughout the summer. And that's something that we'll talk about as we prepare for next summer. But when I mention it then, you will at least remember what I'm talking about, I hope. All right, so at this time, I want to hand it over to the various offices to do a report on their work. So I'm going to start here with operations, and Mr. Furtado.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of a couple of areas. Facilities, most importantly facilities, which did a lot of work on sealing and glazing at Brennan and Wamsutta in regard to the roof issues and the leaking issues. We're pretty happy with the way the work turned out. We haven't had a real powerful rainstorm since, but have had a couple of little incidents of rain and haven't had any problems. So we think the work is going to hold. We got good news sort of in the middle of all that, that the superintendent had alluded to in one of his updates to the committee regarding possibly undertaking the roof projects in their entirety going forward. So we're waiting on that and in anticipation of a good thing there. The other building we've had some leaking issues with is Thatcher. We also did glazing and sealing there over the summer, and again, haven't had any issues yet. One thing the group is most happy and proud of is getting the cooling tower at Thatcher working over the summer. That structure is, they actually use some Flex Seal to seal it. Things like that. There's a lot of those kinds of repairs. They had to fabricate some metal parts and some metal sheeting, but they got it working, and we continue to hope that going forward we're going to have a program to replace all those kinds of major capital issues in the district very soon. We have already started facing kind of post-summer issues. We have a boiler at Quello that needs to be rebuilt. We have a compressor at Hill Roberts that has failed, and some plumbing issues in the high school that we've addressed over the last couple of weeks. So, it's an ongoing effort. We will be bringing requests to the city, to the committee regarding those capital expenditures, and hoping they don't pile up. From a technology perspective, a few things. We have compressed the student ID to now serve multiple functions, including library, food service. We hope buses, we are having a monster problem, and it's not just us, it's Bloom as well, with a vendor who is supplying the technical infrastructure for that service. Bloom opened their school year 200 plus buses without having any GPS capability because of the vendor, so they're scrambling around trying to get some of their technology issues straightened out to help us implement our technology issues. We instituted new toddy processes at the high school and middle schools, which are automated and don't have to require any clerical or person intervention for the students. They can scan in, get their toddy pass, and get right to class. We expanded the network in the high school to bring Wi-Fi to the building B after doing building A last year for the testing. So the high school is, at this point, probably about 95% covered. You can still find some dead areas, but they're few and far between as opposed to what was in existence before. In transportation, over 1,300 fee-for-service applications, and nearly all of them have been processed in students assigned buses. Just the most recent ones have not. We're getting 10, 15 people a day still coming in and registering at this point in the school year. So we're still processing applications and trying to get students on the buses as soon as possible. But it was a very smooth start, as the superintendent said. Not a lot of complaints from our families. So we're very happy.
Mr. Quinn?
From a transportation standpoint, I know that given the time crunch, the short summer, getting all the transportation fee for service set up can be a really daunting challenge, particularly with people enrolling. I know just from my line of work with similar devices. Has there been any thought of using kind of an automatic enrollment process to continue keeping people to help with that planning process, so it's more of like a fee collection piece? And maybe that's already in place, but I understand the crunch that you were talking about, Superintendent Sawyer, and I'm just trying to think of, I like the efficiency that you've tried to deliver with the automatic tardies. I'm wondering if that might be a process, or maybe you can elaborate on what
Sure.
you've done to kind of expedite it.
We're going to do a couple things. We've, as you know, we have the portal for school lunch, which allows parents to kind of pay without having to
Okay.
come to the school or do that sort of thing. We expanded that to Abacus during the year last year, and it went well. We also expanded that to athletic fees for the athletic department, and they've kind of broadened that to include now Hall of Fame registrations and those sorts of things. So it's starting to do what it was meant to do, and kind of accommodate broader functionality across the district. So the next big piece to digest is transportation, where parents will be allowed to register and pay electronically rather than having to present themselves. Again, it's there's a process piece that's a little bit of work to do, but really to kind of finalize and land on a way to deal with if a parent pays the wrong amount, or if a parent pays and then decides, no, I'm buying a car and Johnny's going to drive to school. And so that sort of how do we handle, they're not really mistakes, but how do we handle reconsiderations? Once we get that kind of nailed, we'll be moving forward with that for parents. So sometime during this year, parents will be able to pay for fee for service and register for fee for service electronically.
Also wondering along similar lines if there's a way to link up the payment for fee for service with email notifications, where you can continue to ping families who you knew were taking it last year but haven't, and they're still kind of on the fence. I appreciate the desire to automate it, and I think that's the best direction, because it sounds like a really incredibly taxing process on your end, but also understanding that busy families, that's something that slips their mind, and so the more that we can automate it, I think the better off that we are.
Mr. Geddes?
Speaking of transportation, I know Mr. Sawyer mentioned in his first weekly report that there were some traffic issues here at the high school the first couple of days in relation to construction. It seems like that has died out. Yeah.
Quite nicely, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Are there any new updates or anticipated disruptions to anything at any point in the next few months?
So I was going to do a project update at the end, but
Okay. We can wait.
Sure.
Thanks.
Mr. Quinn?
And just to follow up on Mr. Geddes' point, it took a ride by the Bushy Street lot when school was in session. It looks like you're packed to the gills there at a time when the number of student vehicles is probably at its lowest. Do we have a plan for, or is there more parking that's going to be made available to students? And is that part of the building project update?
Would you like us to talk about that now?
No. But so long as it's coming,
It is coming.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions?
If there's nothing else for Mr. Vitato, I'll ask Ms. Medeiros to tell us a little bit about special education.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you. Like Superintendent Sawyer said, special education is 365 days. We don't close. So we ran our program. Most of our summer programming was 5 weeks. We did have some summer programming that was 6 weeks. We had about 300, a little bit over 300 students, which is typical for us. I want to thank our families for encouraging our students to come on a regular basis. That's very difficult to always come in the summer when there's lots of things going on and the weather is nice. So certainly want to thank our families for supporting us in that. I also want to thank the staff, our teachers, our support staff, facilities, transportation. They kind of make it all happen for us. It isn't just our teaching staff, but all of those folks as well. That makes the programs run really well in 3 buildings. I particularly want to acknowledge Teresa Silva, our ESY coordinator for the last 3 years. She does the day-to-day in the building. I'm here all the time, but she's here in the building every day making sure that things run smoothly. This year, again, for the second year, we partnered with the Recreation Department. We had swim lessons for 30 students, our middle school students. So I want to thank Dennis Walsh and his staff. That continues to be popular and some great feedback. Our pre-K to 4 classrooms held the last week of school a student work showcase for our families. I attended that. Some really nice student work was displayed. Some tears, particularly for our pre-K families who kids were moving on to kindergarten. So definitely some nice things there. We continue to receive positive feedback and constructive feedback for our summer programming and always continue to work and improve and grow that program. As far as our classrooms this year, we didn't open any new classrooms. We did move our language-based LEAP program from Thatcher to Willett. We had a family question and answer session and tour end of May, early June for our families. Principal Caton and myself hosted that over at Willett. Students in the program visited in August with the staff. They came over. The building was empty. Principal Caton was there. They took a tour, got to see the classroom, the big spaces, the gym, the lunchroom, all of that, and meet the principal. And feedback has been that's been a smooth transition. We also last year we started a co-teaching model here at the high school for our grade 10 students. Was very successful. We've expanded that into grade 11 this year. So I want to thank our students, our families, the staff here, particularly at the high school, who've really encouraged and supported that, particularly Assistant Principal Kevin Gorman, who's really kind of led that here at the high school. As far as move-ins this year, last year we had about, at this time of the year, on this day in particular, we had about 48 move-ins. We're at 34 in special ed, so we're down a little bit. We've seen an increase at the high school compared to last year. We're up 5 there, but K to 8, we're down about 16 move-ins from last year, so definitely a difference. As far as out of district, no real changes there. We actually brought back a number of students to in-district programming, and that transition has been very smooth. Our out of district team chair worked hard with our in-district staff to ensure that they got to observe the student, go out and sit on the team meeting. The students had time to have some transition time, so that's been fairly successful, and initial feedback in the first 2 weeks has been that students have done that fairly well. And then programs that we have limited space. Our 3 to 4 social emotional program at Studley continues to be a challenge for us. That's pretty packed for the last couple of years. Project Success, our K to 4 program over at Thatcher, is pretty tight. And then our LEAP program at Willett continues to be tight as well. So thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Geddes?
You mentioned we had 34 move-ins compared to 48 move-ins last year. Did we have any move-outs?
We
Or-
did have some move-outs.
So
So it's the numbers are about the same. As a special ed overall enrollment, the numbers are about the same.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
Were the students who came back into district, was that planned during a budget process, or is that new savings realized?
It was planned during the budget
Okay,
process.
so already built in.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so then to talk about our human resources, Ms. Singer.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyer. Good evening. So, as is the theme here, summer is extremely busy for us. It's when we do the bulk of our work. So far this year, for this school year, we've hired 47 staff members. from teachers, custodians, clerks, and paras. We hired 3 administrators for this year, 30 teachers, 25 replacement for retirement or resignation, and then 5 newly added staff, and 12 paras, 6 replacement and 6 new paras. So we have 4 staff still in the works right now, currently scheduled for interviews, and we have 8 remaining vacancies, one of which is a teacher, hybrid, high school ACA. The rest are paraprofessional positions. So the principals are doing a great job of screening their applicants and moving people forward as quickly as possible. So we anticipate having those filled by the end of the month with how things are going. The other thing I wanted to talk about was ALICE training. As you're all aware, that is our critical incident response training, which we started last year with the staff doing an online module only. We expanded that this year, so the second day that the staff were back, Tuesday the 27th of August, the high school staff and all of the elementary staff went through hands-on scenario-based training in their buildings. Real scenarios and how they would respond to a critical incident should one occur. As you can imagine, the topic evokes a wide range of emotion, but overall the training was appreciated, unfortunately recognizing that this is something that we are proactively looking at, and both staff and families are happy about that. The middle schools will have their scenario training in October 11th, the half-day PD day in October. And then we will also begin training with students. What that will look like is more large group PowerPoint presentation. They will not have the full hands-on scenario training that the staff went through. It's more critical thinking, conversation-based discussion in the classroom. As well as the elementary school teachers were provided a storybook and an activity book, just kind of how to evacuate and what stranger danger look like, things like that. So those resources were provided to them. The other topic I wanted to discuss was wellness survey. Part of HR's job is workplace wellness for our staff, which is an area that we have not focused on much. And so the start of that was to put out a survey to the staff to inquire about topics that they would be interested in, programs that they would be interested in. We've had a roughly 60% response rate from that survey, which is really nice, and people are excited that we're looking at wellness for our staff, from things, exercise, stress management, sleep, stress management, nutrition, things of that nature. So several staff have volunteered to be on the wellness committee that we're going to establish to then take that survey data and figure out where we want to go with that and what things we want to potentially initiate here this year. So we're excited about that, and that's it for my update.
Mr. Geddes?
The 60% response rate on the wellness survey, did you notice any difference in terms of populations within the staff? Like, did you get a higher response rate from?
It was a larger majority was teacher, but we had a good mix of paraprofessional, clerical staff, a couple of custodian and maintenance, but mostly teacher response.
And any variations in terms of like number of years in the district? Like, did you have a better response?
It was actually, I didn't look at years in the district, I looked at age.
Yeah.
So interestingly, it was about 30% both from 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and 50 to 60 age range. It was 33, 25, 20%.
So pretty
spread
even
out.
across the whole.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, and to complete our opening update, I'll turn it over to Ms. Regan.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyer. So, enrollment was one of my major tasks to handle this summer, and one thing I realized since I've been in this position, that the enrollment is about the same every single year. We
have about between 270 and 300 students that enroll in the summer, and the pattern is about the same. There's about 70 to 80 that register before we have open registration. There's about between 100 and 150 that register during open registration, and then there's about another 70 to 80 that come in after that. And so the pattern is the same every single year. Comparing our enrollment to October 1st last year, we're about 45 students up from where we were, but that is including students who we're still trying to figure out where they are because they haven't attended school since the start yet, so we're investigating if they are truly coming here or if they've enrolled in another district. So we're trying to figure that out, but it looks like our numbers are steady. One thing that we did not expect is in the week that we opened up school, we had 13 kindergarten students register. And so we know that things come up and that it's, people move in at the last minute, but we really tried to make it so that kindergarten is registered before this so that they can participate in all of the transition events that we have to start out the year on the right foot. One other thing I'd like to speak about is the social emotional learning professional development. So on our first choice professional development day, we had a district-wide professional development session that our district team presented, and it was max capacity. There was over 60 people within it, and the feedback that we got from that day was that it was successful on that day. The team will continue to work with the Rennie Center with the Excel network this year, and once again I'd like to thank Bristol County Savings for giving us the opportunity to participate in that network. The grant continues to support us in that way. Another grant that we are working on is the Improving Student Access to Behavioral and Mental Health Services. So we are in the planning stages of that with our outside agencies to provide services to students during the school day. And the other grant that we are working on is the Innovation Pathways Grant. We're waiting to hear back from the Department of Education on some guidance. This is our planning year, and so we're looking to buckle down and put our team together to write up a proposal so that will be accepted for the full grant for next year. So we have a couple things in process and getting ready to start the year in preparation for next year.
Any questions? Yeah, Mr. Storrs?
Can you speak to class sizes? Is it about normal, or how are we looking overall?
Class sizes are about normal. We try to keep them at the caps that we've already set. There are a couple spots where the class sizes are a little bit higher, but we're monitoring those and trying to keep them at where they are.
What grades are those that they're high?
Currently, right now, grade 8
Grade 8.
is our highest.
Mr. Geddes?
And to be clear, normal doesn't necessarily mean desirable.
Correct.
So, because what has been normal for us over the years has been overpopulated a little bit.
Correct.
So I just don't want the message to be
Yes,
class sizes are
normal
capped
is
out.
unsound.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Regan.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions about the opening, we'll switch to the much anticipated project update. These are exciting times. What was once very abstract has become very real. We had a very busy summer seeing the campus transformed from the one that we have known for a long, long time to something that looks noticeably different, be it parking where there used to be grass, or the fence around what used to be the parking lot, to most recently, I think we might now rival any other point in Attleboro for the highest point with that dirt mound out there. So the work is real, and it's ongoing. And that's the first point I want to make, is that the change is constant. As the project goes from phase to phase, it's a different thing each week. And as things unfold, there are lots of unexpected moments. Mr. Furtado, Mr. Rooney, and I enjoy each daily surprise as they arise, and we do our best to work through it. But I think we need to get used to the fact that from here until we move in, It's going to be a very fluid situation with lots of unanticipated moments that we will do our best to anticipate as best they can, but when things happen, we'll do what we can to address them. To that end, I really recommend that families at home that are curious about all of this pay attention to the updates through the site that we've created on the website, and there's the presence on Facebook, and I think Mr. Rooney does an excellent job of not only providing those weekly updates, but as needed information is being sent out through a Remind group as well. So we're doing our best to keep people informed, but that is an ever-changing landscape. So whatever was true 2 weeks ago, I mean that's ancient news, and I think that's going to continue to be the way we experience this moving forward. I would like to say that through all of this, the reaction from our families and students has been just tremendous, how much patience they have shown. I think Mr. Rooney and I were both anticipating a bit more of understandable complaining about our efforts to work through this transition into the school year, and it really didn't manifest itself. People, I think, understand what we're up against and were willing to give us a little bit of time to work things out, and we have worked out the most problematic things, and we continue to work out the longer term things as well. But I just can't say enough how much I appreciate that people seem to be demonstrating and understanding that these are challenging situations, and it's going to be a challenge through the next several years. In terms of parking specifically, we've been hopeful all along that we would end up with enough parking spots. The plan did call for, a relatively close number to what we had. I think when, it really came down to stripe the lots, we ended up short by somewhere between 15 and 20 spots overall. That, coupled with the fact that with things being tight, we made sure to secure more visitor parking than we had previously, leaves us in a situation where we are packed to the gills, and we are still working out making sure everyone parks in the right place so that the parking works the way it's supposed to. But with all of that, I think we've identified a sincere need for more parking, which means that we're going to need to go to our contingency plan, which we always had talked through in case we ended up here, which is to take the first section of tennis courts, the ones closest to Verndale, and convert those over to parking. That will create almost 50 new spots, which will make us whole on where we're short now and provide us a little bit of expansion for the number of kids who are going to be added to the parking rolls throughout the year. That'll have to go before the school building committee for approval. I believe we're taking it up tomorrow night.
On Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, excuse me. So we can't just do that unilaterally, but we know that we have a parking problem, and rather than wait till it becomes a bigger parking problem, we're going to ask that the SBC give us permission to start preparing for that. So that's the big plan with that. Other than that, I think we're off to a good start with the project.
Skills?
With that, what impact will that have on the tennis teams, and what is the plan for that?
Sure. So my understanding is that we can continue to host meets with 5 courts, which is what we would be left with.
Okay.
So that's why we're only taking that first row, so that they still have what they need. Now, I mean, we did have a backup plan to the backup plan that would have resulted in them not being able to host if we had to take more of them. But that amount was the amount we hope we wouldn't have to go past, so that we could continue to have home meets for tennis, and we will be able to do that. I mean, it's not optimal, but it's definitely doable, at least according to our athletic director.
Mr. Geddes?
And you mentioned folks parking where they need to. It's not a matter of different lots, but colored parking spots.
Well, there's both. So there's quite a bit more faculty parking out front, and I know there's been questions about, why we did things the way we did. We didn't want certain types of traffic interacting with each other. So one of the things that we have pretty nicely now is that we have all the student parking in one place like we did before, but that's now away from the buses, and it's also away from the parent drop-offs. So, that's kind of like the three challenges, right? So we have the parent loop, we have the bus loop, and then we have student parking. And under the current configuration, those three things are all kept separate because where we have safety problems is when any two of those interact with each other.
Right.
So as a result of that, there's more parking for faculty up front than historically has been the case. So you got to change people's practices. Some people who are used to parking in Bushy Street really need to consider parking up front. So part of it's moving from one lot to another where the availability is. But it's also that because we had some issues in the first week getting used to all of this and also getting the number of spots right in the right places, we had some people who were being creative about how to deal with the fact that they didn't have a spot. And so we're trying to address that politely at this stage. We'll get a little bit more forward about it as time goes on, but trying to make sure that people are in the right places, either in terms of the lots or in terms of the color that they're supposed to be parking in.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mrs. Doris?
Mr. Quinn alluded to it earlier. Right now in the school year, we're at the best point that we can be as far as students driving. As we move forward, some students will become of age and start driving. So the expansion that you talked about, will that cover that, or will we need additional as the year goes?
So rather than just come up with a fix that would only get us back to where we were, we're going with a fix that creates an additional, say, 30 spots. And on top of the 20 that we need to get to whole. So that was part of the thinking on this. But that number of spots will put us well in excess of what we've ever had. So I've got to hope that that's going to cover it.
Mrs. Scales?
Just an observation today, when I was here at the picnic table outside the pit, like after 2, I don't know if it happens all the time, but I just noticed it, at least 3 cars going the wrong way around the loop. I don't know if maybe we could do I don't know if arrows are needed.
The Blue Pride Way loop, or?
Yeah, they were going the wrong way around the loop.
Really?
I know. So I don't know if that's a thing that happens all the time, and I just happen to be there to notice it.
I'll add that I watch people walk through 4 do not enter signs and arrows pointing this way to come in the
So I don't know if maybe
the
throw it,
superintendent's loop. We'll keep working on it.
Okay.
Mr. Quinn?
Just to comment on a question. First, I think the signage that was out front was really excellent. I think, obviously there's getting used to habits and patterns, but in terms of the clarity of where people should be parking, the signage was good. I liked how the spots were clustered together. One of the things I'm wondering is, my impression, perhaps it's only my impression, was that the old lot was a little bit like the Wild Wild West. I'm trying to be generous. So I'm curious if, when counting spots, the management group had taken into, for lack of a better term, the cow paths, so where people would park even if there weren't lots. Because I'm thinking, given the number, say we have, let's just call it 400 students in the sophomore, junior class, or kids who are eligible to get their license. I've got to imagine that it's going to be more than 50 new drivers that we might have coming in, and that's what kind of concerns me about that number. It seems low, but again, I don't know the data, and I don't know what's the expectation based on what people were able to create in those lots prior. So I'm just wondering, I don't know if there's a process to get a better handle on that data. I would almost wonder if, and maybe it's too late in this process, that if you could ask for, let's say, 70 to 100, is 50 gonna get you where you need to be? I guess that's my concern.
Yes. So personally, as a student, I do not have my license yet. I'm getting it in November, and I know that I am not. My birthday's in May. I'm not the tail end of my grade. I'm going to be a junior. There are people who have birthdays up until that first day of school. So you have that whole summer, adding on to what he's saying, you have that whole summer full of birthdays of people who are going to get their license all throughout junior year. Then you have those people who waited until senior year. And they may not get a car, but they So you can't put a number on it per se, but I know I plan on driving. I don't want to ride the bus anymore when I get my license. So so that I think that is a factor in your counting spots and his comment on adding spots, how many students are coming in.
Yeah, the number is definitely going to go up. It does every year, and for the reasons that we're describing, it's absolutely true. Again, we're going to have a number of spots that's well in excess of what we've ever had. So, deductively, you would hope that indicates that it's enough. It's hard to know how many we need because we don't have any process for that, and never have, and I'm not sure what we would do about it. But another piece of this is that as packed as it is now, part of that is because we were still working out some of the issues that will create more spaces for people.
Yep.
So, as tight as things are in the back, up front, in what we call the Bray lot now,
You could convert those.
If you walk around at any time during the day, you'll see quite a few spots. So, we're ironing all that out, and that'll help contribute to the solution.
Thank you.
We did add more
William?
student parking.
Also, with the new parking, that would be where the tennis courts would be. Would that be all student parking, or would that be 40 new student parking, 4 teacher parking, and then how would that work? Is it all students, or is it spread up with different colored lots, or not colored lots, but spots?
So, there isn't need for more faculty parking. Whether or not we move some of the faculty parking to that area is something that I think we're still working on. I don't know if you want to chime in, Mr. Rooney.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, to Eleanor's point, we did, we built in a little bit of a cushion in terms of staff parking, but as Mr. Sawyer's already said, there weren't always necessarily folks that were willing to break their habits of where they parked in the past. We also had some issues with the specialized transportation that Mr. Furtado and the transportation company resolved over the weekend. So now the specialized transportation that's in the Bray lot has their own dedicated spots, and the drivers interchange the specialized transportation for their own personal vehicle. So those are staff spots that are now available in the Bray lot. But one of the things that we accomplished Labor Day weekend was we reduced the number of staff spots by 11, I believe, and gave more student spots after just the first 2 days of school. But to William's question, we we value our partnership with Whitson's. The Whitson's folks come in at various times in the morning. Sometimes it's difficult for them to necessarily know which of the 3 lots there might be some staff spaces. So we have had some discussions about possibly devoting 22 spots for the Whitson's employees in that new tennis court lot. But, again, that's still an ongoing thing. But if those 22 spots are devoted to Whitson's on the tennis court lot, then that's 22 spaces that would be converted to general parking in the Bushy Street lot. And Mrs. Scales, to your point about the tennis courts, the only thing that we would see is just a slight change to the way we practice. When the boys and girls practice together, they've had 8 courts to use at the same time. Now they'll have to be a little bit more creative in terms of 2 courts apiece, and then 1 court for girls, and the boys use the wall, and then they can rotate.
Mr. Geddes?
The parking on Rathbun Willard Drive, this morning at least, it seemed like there were fewer cars out there than there are typically. Are those typically students, staff? Along Highland Park across from Blue Pride Way? Both. So it seems like more of those folks are in actual parking spots now. And when we get to a point where that portion of road is being redone, which I realize is a couple years away, by then parking with the new building up, we'll be able to address a lot of that, right? Thank you.
That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Sawyer. Next, we have our minutes from our August 5th meeting. Draft minutes were circulated with your packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $17,940 from Coelho Middle School PTO to be deposited in the gifts donation line for educational purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $4,403.65 from the Wamsutta Middle School PTO to be deposited in the gifts donation line for Chromebooks.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $306 from Sea Research Foundation doing business as Mystic Aquarium to be deposited in the gifts donation line for Hyman Fine.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Thatcher PTO to be deposited in the gifts donation line to purchase one interactive smart television and stand for the classrooms and Chromebooks.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Ms. Geddes?
Once again, we have 3 PTO donations totaling over $32,000. So I'd say our school year is off to a great start in PTO donations. So thank you to the PTOs for continuing to contribute so much to our district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $183.50 from Planet Aid, Inc. regarding bill number Q2 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $252 from Muse Paint Bar to the class of 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation of a Jugs field hockey machine with an estimated value of $1,485 from the Rebecca Lynn Whitefield Foundation to the Attleboro High School field hockey program.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes our consent agenda tonight. Next, we'll move on to our subcommittee reports, of which we have one, and Mr. Domenici is going to pinch hit for Mr. Larson and update us on finance and budget.
I am, and I'd like to thank the administration for kind of speaking to several of the items that are on here, so well done. So we kicked off our first meeting with the school open, so the budget lines always look great on that first budget review, because there's just not a whole lot yet to happen. But the good news too is that the state did approve the Senate's budget plan, so we did receive $502,000 additional for our budget. So it's not in any of the reports yet, but that money has been moved through, and I believe the council has already approved it. So it's just a matter of time, and I think for the October meeting we'll have it accounted for, which is good because we had anticipated those funds, and there were a few line items like for substitute teachers, human resources, and OIT that will be replenished. So that's good. We also, I know Yvonne, you gave the update on special education, and that was, a much better story than at this time last year when we were dealing with.
Crossing my fingers.
Yes,
that it remains that
we
way.
had
Probably, yeah.
significant unexpected numbers, and we are dead on right now with where our line items are. So that's always a good way to start. When Mr. Furtado gave us the update for the finish of the final budget, literally, I always attributed to like parking the Concorde on the TF Green airstrip. You think you're gonna not have enough runway, but sure enough, we finished about $25,000 on the budget lines, and another $15,000 to $20,000 on encumbrances. So like just over the line. That was something that we were. Every budget meeting was always a challenge to see where we would be, and Mark said he'd think we'd make it, and we did. So that's always a good thing. We had the MSBA update, so which we spent a bunch of time already talking about, so I will not reiterate that again. But on that note, we kind of sidebarred for a few minutes to talk about Coelho, and I know that they have changed their traffic pattern, and there's been some challenges with that, I think, and folks have raised some concerns, so I think they continue to work out the kinks there. And then as far as fee for service, Mark, you gave us the update already with where the numbers were, and you know, we've got the same number of bus routes going on, and we are still working through the process and are just about complete. We have two motions on here, so we did have some prior year invoices that did not get processed in time to make the cutoff for the end of the fiscal year. We have to approve these in order to send them to the municipal council. Normally, we'd have these paid out of the carryover line, but we actually don't have any carryover line numbers, so it has to go in front of the council, and you know, the city will have to determine, you know, how they'll fund it. So at this point in time, I will entertain a motion, and the list of items, there's 3, they're in our packets. So I entertain a motion to approve to send to the municipal council the prior year invoices in the amount of $5,038.72.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We also, thanks again, Mark, for kind of giving an update on facilities. You've made my life easier tonight. The other item, the other motion, this one was really interesting because, you know, for the graphics department, Canon had reached out to Mr. Ramos to propose to replace his machine with a better machine, and in the process reducing the monthly cost by about $1,000 a month, on top of throwing in some additional funds. So Mr. Ramos brought that to Mr. Furtado, who said, "Why? Sounds too good to be true. Let's call." And sure enough, it's the case. Newer model, cheaper for us. Over the lifetime of the 5-year lease, it'll save us about $50,000. Because it's over 36-month lease, we have to go to and get municipal council approval. So we will entertain a motion to approve so that it will go to the council for further approval. So I entertain a motion to approve to enter into a 60-month unified lease agreement with Canon for a copy machine for the CTE graphics department at $1,453 per month, pending municipal council approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this,
Withers.
so the current lease is about approximately 2,500?
Yes.
And so is that lease expiring, or is it just
No,
replacing
that's
it?
what's so crazy about this. No, yeah.
Okay.
It's about midway.
So it's just, but it's replaced, we're not paying for both?
No,
No.
they just came to our door and said, what if we did this?
Okay.
Mr. Stores.
Being that this is for CT graphics, is this considered like a sole source type, you know, we don't have to put it out?
We don't have to put it out because they, in addition to a state contract, they're also buying groups that constitute the equivalency of a state contract, and we're buying it through one of those.
Great.
Oh,
Mr. Quinn.
through you to Mr. Furtado. Do we typically lease these machines for 5 years? It seems a bit long on a copy machine. Number one. Number two, do we have a sense of, is this kind of like where this is in their product line? It might be better than what we have, but is it end of the,
Of
the
the product
20
cycle?
Getting their
No.
clearance.
This is their latest and greatest, in terms of the product cycle
Yep.
time. Yeah, again, when you look at everything, none of it makes sense. But they put it on paper, so we want to take it. Yeah.
Again, I have no idea, but 60 months is typical for the machine.
No, if this were a machine that was going to be used in the copy center at those kind of
Yep,
use
workhorse,
rates,
yep.
we would never do 5 years. But this is a machine that Dan does some production on, but really teaches on. So
Yep.
it's a great opportunity.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
That completes the update from the Finance and Budget Subcommittee. We're meeting next in the first week of October.
Thank you, Mr. Domenici. That concludes our subcommittee reports tonight. And last on the agenda, we have open forum. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee at open forum? Please come forward and state your name.
Thanks, Chairman Withers. My name's Joe Amwell. I'm the president of the Attleboro Education Association. I really just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself to you all formally and tell you that I look forward to working with you this year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee at open forum? All right, I will close open forum. Being anyone else have any other business? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Sorry. No, we're connected here. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Maybe they found something to be more efficient.
When I looked it through, and I'm like, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't see any,
Anything that
I didn't see any red herrings, so to speak.
Infrastructure.
Took off.
Yeah, we covered a lot of our agenda today.
Yeah.
Sorry.